Hey everyone! So as you have no doubt noticed, there is a game out there that's just about to finish their Kickstarter and I wanted to give it a little promo before that's over. It's called Vampire the Masquerade Chapters and it's by Flyos Games. It's a board game adaptation of V5 and it takes place in Montreal, which, honestly, badass. In case you don't know, Montreal was literally the Sabat HQ in Canada and there was some really weird shit going down there. It's one of those few by night settings that got released by Black Dog, White Wolf's edgier brand that had stuff you really didn't want to show your parents. The developers of this game know about this naturally, so they're implementing a ton of stuff that I'm sure will be calling back to the former rulers of the city, including some weird underground Simitsi monstrosity that may or may not have gotten unlocked with the stretch goals. So there's a 2-scenario demo available online over at Tabletopia. One of the reasons it took me so long to make this video is because I never got it to work on my browser, and then someone told me it's on Steam. Whoops. Anyway, the 2 scenarios they give you serve as these basic tutorials for how the game is played, and in one of them you're playing a gangrel who spots a man from her past. Actually, let me just read the introduction for you. You opened your eyes at dusk, awakened by hunger. You exited your haven, searching for prey. Perhaps a mortal with a solid build, that's how you like them. The air is sweet tonight, and the botanical garden attract a large crowd. You take position in the dark to observe the livestock. As time passes by, the flow of humans thins. You start to think that you might have missed your chance. Suddenly, your attention is drawn to a group of kindred hunting on your territory. Something strange is happening. You remain vigilant, away from the action. The silhouette of a large man, the shadows hiding his face, is heading towards a white van in the parking lot. He goes around, opens the rear doors, and pulls out a shovel, slinging it on his shoulder. Then, he heads back to the botanical gardens with the pace of a man with purpose. The orange glow of the streetlights illuminate his face. You can see a scar, a killer's face, his face. 1990, the Oka crisis. In the little house where you found refuge for the past week, only chaos and blood remains. The last nights have been rough, and the military certainly didn't make it easier. But tonight, your life really turns upside down. In the little roofless house, a man is standing still, your brother's broken neck in his right hand. And even if you are but a mortal, a bestial instinct urges you to act. Only one of you will make it out alive. Combat is pretty easy in this game. You essentially pick one of a couple of moves you have, shuffle the opponent's deck, and pick a move for them from the top, and then you compare. There's dice rolling involved, and I'm honestly really impressed with how they work that into the game. And since you're a mortal in this prologue, you don't really have access to any fancy stuff, so you've got either hand-to-hand or a knife to choose from. There's a whole bunch of flavor text in these that I don't want to spoil for you aside from the opening, and the way that they work in these choose your own adventure elements into this is nice. I would have perhaps wanted to see a little bit more dynamics in the gameplay itself for this demo. It was almost ridiculously easy beating this guy, which I attribute primarily to me checking my sheet before deciding on unarmed combat, which you have 3 dots in, compared to the 1 dot you have in weaponry. There also wasn't much in terms of variation, no disciplines to use, no maneuvering around the game board, but it did teach me enough to know that combat's pretty fluent. I like it. I also like that they kept the same dice design as for V5, and since I ordered the Elder Pack, I'll be getting some sweet metallic dice that I can use in my normal role-playing too, so that's a huge bonus. Overall, the scenario was pretty easy, but I did get pulled in quickly simply because it was an intuitive system with just enough flavor text to keep it interesting. I had very little problem understanding what I needed to do, which I also attribute to me knowing the fundamentals of V5. I'm imagining it might not be as easy for someone who's new, especially new to Vampire completely, but there's plenty of text to explain what all these symbols and stuff means anyway. Montreal, 8:30 p.m. As you relax in an old leather chair from Prohibition days, a bonus gleaned from one of your last transactions, you enjoy a glass of specially preserved blood while writing a last report. You type your last letter to the rhythm of the autumn rain hitting the large office windows. Once your message is finished and sent, you conscientiously read the letter from the Prince of Montreal one last time. Mr. Armstrong, 2 important members of our communities will visit you this evening, which could endanger the fragile alliance I've spent so much time forging. Their childish territorial disputes mustn't get out of hand. I was sold on your diplomatic skills. It's time to prove to myself that I was right to accept a member of the Vancouver lineage into this city. Failure is not an option. Martin Hilkers. You slip the letter into the paper shredder, and as the machine's blades shred the letter, your apprentice announces the arrival of your clients. You open the door, politely thanking Amy, whom you give the evening off, and tell your guests to come in. Both kindred enter the room, and you indicate their places for the meeting. The thinner of the two sits down. Gentlemen, I am Samuel Armstrong, a descendant of Siegfried, Prince of Vancouver. We are gathered tonight to shed some light on an embarrassing situation. In order to preserve the masquerade, our conversation will not be recorded. I invite you to begin by presenting the facts from your point of view. Thomas Chartrand, the Bruja, shaped like a woodcutter who has remained still, points to Antonio Andrade, the thin Malkavian in a grey suit. It's simple. This bastard came hunting on my territory without permission. I'm willing to forget about it if he apologizes. Otherwise, then, there will be consequences, okay? Settled in a comfortable armchair and keeping his calm, the Malkavian retorts. It's just a little dispute over the right of pursuit. You know, I was simply chasing a prey for a long moment until it entered his territory. But you have the right to hunt anywhere as long as you begin outside someone else's haven. And then it escalated into violence, so nothing in the laws of the domain prohibits me from doing this. And without waiting, the Bruja advances towards the Malkavian, who stands up, fists raised. Are you kidding me? I'm gonna rip your fangs off! And you step in. This scenario turned out to be a lot more difficult, especially when you forget you have willpower to use. I really liked this one, even though I got the worst possible results, because I had some shitty luck with the dice, alright? And it just oozes daily drudge of the prince's assistant. Now I don't know if that's exactly who I was playing, but I got the feeling I was doing some basic stuff that he couldn't be bothered with himself. The scenario seemed very realistic, two kindred having a dispute over territory and hunting, and although I failed every single attempt, the game did have me failing forward, which is a design choice I can appreciate. Mostly it was, you will have a harder time on your next roll, and yeah, I sure did. Overall, I think this was a stronger scenario, as it had a lot more text written for it and the branching plot tree was really well done. There were so many cards I could end up with. At no point did I feel stumped, but again I think it was because of my experience with a similar system. I can't speak for someone who's new to these games, but honestly the basic mechanics seems pretty simple. It certainly helps too with the Ankh dice because it's much easier to spot a success on them, not having to keep numbers in your head. Overall, I was kind of blown away by the quality of the writing of this game, and everything else just looks amazing. I love the art direction and the characters, and it's coming out of the gate with a crap ton of them to pick from and a lot of scenarios to play through. In a way, I was reminded a bit of Gloomhaven, which is really high praise, but I think that this game is still going to be a little less complex than that. Even so, this isn't something you can easily play through during an evening, and I can imagine putting everything out to play. Yeah, this is your typical once a month for a whole day type of game. Can I recommend backing it though? Absolutely. Just trying out these two early game scenarios, I was blown away by how well everything worked. This is a finished game, at least the basics of it, and you can tell that there's going to be a lot more added to it. The slightly more compact character sheet does a great work of providing an overview for your abilities, and I can't wait to see more of how disciplines work. I guess that's the part I missed the most, but maybe I just didn't catch any discipline usage in the Venture scenario. I might have to replay it. The game itself is described as a 1 to 4 player game, so yeah, you can definitely play through this on your own, and each scenario is about 30 minutes per player, so it's theoretically something you could play a round of with your family after dinner, but I'm gonna assume it'll take a while to set it up anyway. It'll be available in English, French, Spanish, and German too, and that's a really ambitious goal. You can order the game in 3 different sets, the Kindred and Selae Elder sets, and now why anyone would pledge for less than the Elder set is beyond me, but then maybe I'm the only one here who is an absolute completionist who wants everything. Anyone else? No? Alright then. Anyway, what's actually in all these sets is a little too much for me to go into detail with over here, but you should definitely check them out on Kickstarter. There's a total of 8 standard playable characters and 3 additional ones that count as expansion packs. The standards are Bruja, Gangrel, Malkavian, Nosferatu, Toreador, Tremere, Ventrue, and Caitiff. The 3 expansion packs are Banu Hakim, Ministry, and La Sombra, who happens to be my personal favorite of the bunch. At the time I'm recording this, there's only about 30 hours left on the Kickstarter. If you haven't checked it out yet, I strongly recommend you do. This game has all the makings of a classic right away, and I can't wait the 1 year plus it'll take to get it. Whew. Anyway, go check it out. See you later.